Snow White and Rose Red. Once upon a time, in the forest, there was a little cottage, and in that cottage lived a little old woman, and she kept just outside the windows of her cottage by the door 2 rose bushes, one that produced blooms of snowy pure white, and one that produced roses of deep red. For indeed she had 2 daughters, one whose hair was shining blonde and pale milky skin, named Snow White, and the other with dark hair and flushed cheeks and ruby lips, whose name was Rose Red. And these girls were of the same age, and they would live together and play together all the days. And they would run through the forest together, laughing. And they were so good, and they were so kind, and they were so happy, that all of nature loved them. They could live in the woods playing and laughing, and no ill would befall them. They could sit on a tree stump and feed rabbits who'd come up to them and eat cabbage leaves right out of their hands. Squirrels would sit on their shoulders. Birds would sing melodies to them, and the deer family would come and sit beside them and have the little fawn rest his head in one of their laps. They were loved by nature. They were so loved that they could play all day into the night, and then when it got dark, find a soft patch of moss and lay down to sleep, and awake in the morning unharmed and find their way home. Nature loved Snow White and Rose Red. Well, winter came, and the girls were indoors with their mother, and they had just finished a dinner of some very hot, thick soup, the kind that sticks to your ribs, and they were sitting by the fire and putting the bolt on the door, and they were going to read for a bit before going to bed, when suddenly, in the middle of a blinding snowstorm, came a thump, thump, thump at the door. The little old woman said, "Rose Red, go and answer the door. It's some poor traveler who's been caught in the storm. You'd better let him in quick before he freezes to death." And Rose Red went and opened the door, and there, in the doorway, was an enormous black bear. Snow White shrieked and ran behind her mother's chair and hid. And Rose Red was about to scream when the bear started to speak. And the bear said, "Do not be afraid of me. I mean you no harm. I'm freezing in this storm, and I came hoping that you would let me sit by your fire and get warm." And the little old woman said, "Girls, do not be afraid. This bear is well intended. Open the door and let him come in and sit by our hearth and get warm." And Snow White came out from behind the chair, and Rose Red came, and they let the bear sit in front of the hearth. And the little old woman said, "Now, bear, sit and get warm here. Lie down, but not too close. You do not want to burn your coat of fur." And the bear said, "Thank you. Would you mind, girls, please getting some sticks and beating the snow that's crusted in my fur out of my fur?" And the 2 girls went and they got brooms, and they swept the fur coat of the bear clear of all the snow. And then they started to tease him, and they poked him with the brooms, and they beat him with the bristles, not too hard, until the bear cried out, "Girls, girls, leave me alive!" All in good fun. And from then on, every night that winter, the bear would come, and he would lie down in front of the fire and get warm. And the girls would play with him and tug at his fur until he cried out, "Snowy White and Rosy Red, leave your bear alone, lest he be dead." Then, one morning, spring came. The crocuses came up through the snow. The forsythia bloomed in its yellow flowers. And the bear said, "The world is in thaw. My girls, it is time for me to go back into the woods and guard my treasure from the sneaky dwarves. They have been under their ground in their caves all winter, unable to break through the frozen ground, so they couldn't get at my treasure. But now they can get through, and I have to go and guard my treasure, lest they make off with it all." And with that he gamboled away into the forest. Berry picking season came, and it was time for Snow White and Rose Red to go out in the forest and pick the blueberries. Well, they were walking in the forest towards their favorite blueberry patch when they spied something jumping up and down like a grasshopper near a fallen tree. And they went over to it, and there, lo and behold, was a dwarf. A skinny little dwarf with a long white beard that was caught in the crook of a fallen tree. And they went over to the dwarf, and the dwarf said, moving and wiggling and trying to free himself from the tree, "You there! You stupid girls! Come over here! Come to me, stupid girls, and get my beard free from this tree! I was cutting it down, you see. I need some firewood. I don't need as much as you. I'm not big and fat like you are. I'm a little thing, and I was splitting the trunk, and the split opened and then closed on my beard, and I'm trapped. Get me free! Get me free! Pull it out!" Well, the girls pulled and wiggled the beard, and it was just held fast in the grain of the freshly fallen tree. There was nothing to do, so Rose Red took a pair of scissors from her apron, and she snipped off the end of the dwarf's beard, and he was free, and he was dancing about, cursing. "Damn! Damn you girls! You stupid wrenches! Look what you've done to my beautiful beard! You've cut the end right off!" And then he picked up a sack that was filled with gold, and he ran off. Well, the season went on, and it was time for the girls to go fishing and see if they could catch dinner for their mother. So the salmon were leaping and the trout were plentiful, and so they went down to a river in the woods to see if they could catch a dinner. And as they got to the bank, there again they saw something flapping around like crazy, and they ran up to it, and sure enough, it was the dwarf again. He had been fishing, and in the line of the fishing line of his fishing pole, his long beard had gotten caught up in the line, and just then a fish had been caught, hooked on, and was pulling at the line, so he was struggling and he couldn't untangle his beard. He saw the girls and he called out to them, "You stupid girls! Get me free! Get over here and get me free! Get my beard untangled!" The girls went over to him and they worked very hard, delicately trying to untangle the hairs of his beard with the line, but it was twisted and gnarled in a ball, and one of those that you, no matter how delicate your fingernails, you just can't get it untangled. So Snow White took a pair of scissors from her apron, and she snipped off the tangled part of the beard, and of course the dwarf danced about cursing her. Damn you, stupid, careless, thoughtful wenches! You've ruined my beard!" And he picked up a sack filled with pearls and ran off. Well, harvest season came, and it was time for the girls to pick the melons from their mother's melon patch, and the cucumbers from the cucumber patch, and a few spicy chilies that Rose Red had planted herself, and to take them to market to sell. And so they carried them down the road, and away from the cottage, and around a corner, when they saw a great big eagle, flapping and flapping its wings. Clearly it was battling something, or trying to grab some poor animal and carry it away. The girls ran up, hearing screams, and lo and behold, there was the little dwarf fighting the eagle, and the eagle's talons had gotten caught in his beard. And he was flapping at the eagle, and the eagle was trying to take off and carry him away to feed to her children. And he saw the girls, and he said, "You stupid girls! Stupid, thoughtless girls! Get over here! Get me free from this eagle!" And Snow White and Rose Red ran up to the dwarf, And they tried to shoo the eagle away, but it was no use. It was so caught in the beard, there was no disentangling them. So the girls took their scissors from their aprons and they snipped off the dwarf's beard, caught in the eagle's talons. And the eagle flew away, and the dwarf cursed them worse than ever. "You damnable, stupid, wretched, awful, flatulent, no-account, two-bit, unattractive wenches have ruined me! I can't show my face to my family or friends. My beard is in shreds!" And he picked up a sack filled with gems and ran off. The girls went to the market, and they sold all of their mullers, melons and cucumbers, and Rose Red's chili peppers. They brought quite a fine price. And then on their way back, they walked through a meadow, and at the edge of the meadow, on a flat rock, there was the dwarf, and he was counting the gems that had been in his sack. And the girls went up to him, and they stared at these gems. And he put his arms over them, and he said, "What are you looking at? These are mine! These are all mine! They're mine! I found them! I cultivate them! They're mine!" And Rose Red and Snow White began to ask him questions. "Where did you find such beautiful gems? We've played in this forest all of our lives. We had no idea there were gems like this in the forest. Are there more? Can we find them?" And the dwarf was angry with him, and he said, "No, of course you can't. Any gems in the forest are mine. I'm the one who has put them there. They're all mine. You girls stay away from my gems." And just as he was about to gather his gems back into their sack and run away, a great black bear came out of the forest, and with one swipe of his paw, he smacked the dwarf, who went flying and fell to the ground dead. The girls screamed and ran away, but the bear called after them, "Snow White, Rose Red, it's nothing to be afraid of. I am your friend." And as they turned to look at the bear walked up to them with his fur falling off in pieces, revealing a beautiful, handsome prince in gold raiments. He came to Snow White and Rose Red and took their hands and said, "Thank you. The treasures that you saw with this dwarf are mine. And this dwarf put a spell on me, changing me into a bear, so he could steal my treasures from me. And now that I have finally found him, after all these months, and killed him, the curse is broken. Thank you." Well, the prince and Snow White went on to be married, and the prince's brother married Rose Red, and the four of them lived happily in the family castle all of their lives. And the little old woman, Snow White and Rose Red's mother, uprooted the white and red rose bushes and brought them along to the castle, where they grew outside her window, every year producing a snow white rose and a ruby red rose.